Hello and welcome back, dear viewers and listeners. This video is a two-part video brought to you by 4 days of very frustrating fishing. I think the fourth day I didn't even show. I think there's some small clips from the fourth day, I reckon, at some point, but either way, regardless. I've been having a horrific time trying to do some spin fishing here on the East Coast. And even on 2 days where the conditions were immaculate and you couldn't draw them to be more perfect, I still ended up catching nothing. Now, when I say a session, I don't mean 1 hour, 2 hour, even 3 hour session. Even at the 3 hour spinning mark, not catching a thing, that can really drain a man of his soul. I'm talking about 2 separate days, and I'm talking seriously full days, where I'm fishing for the span, however long it takes me to walk 10 kilometers. And that's not a joke. I mentioned it on my little Garmin. It was 10 kilometers of me fishing it up, down, sand, gully, weed, stone, cliff, whatever have you, and catching sweet nothing. And the next day I said, you know what, maybe I was out of touch. Maybe I was just off-piste. And I jumped into my waders and then waded for the next 4 to 5 hours fishing into the sunset of the next evening on a spot that I have confirmed that I've caught nice bass before. And this has brought me to the very kind of disappointing conclusion that at least this time of year, this year, the water here on the East Coast seems to be a little bit too cold to spin fish. And this is kind of what I'm going to get at with this video. This is sort of almost like a TLDR, that a lot of the time it's not your fault. You're not fishing it wrong. You aren't the mistake. You don't have to go buy new kit. You don't have to do any of that nonsense. It's just quite simply the conditions aren't totally there. That's the TLDR. If you don't want to watch the rest of the video, at least you've learned something. But for those of you that are sticking along and enjoying the lovely music, here is the rest of the video. Boom. Now, onto the spinning. The first 2 days of spinning that I did was just incredibly frustrating. Just culminating me basically climbing over rocks and getting to all these kind of out of reach places, and even at some points here I just like trespassed down the estuary and was behind these people's cabins and just fishing the stream up and down, just trying to desperately just get my hands on something. I did a lot of cliff walking, and like I said, kilometers of beach, all totally fished through, like on the way over, on the way back, here, there, everywhere, all sorts of lures. Here actually I'm using a slow jig. I started using that on certain parts of the surf. As you can see, sorry, just in the top left frame, I'm sure I pan up at some point, I'll have a clip of that, but just while I have you here, you can see how many tranches we have, how many layers of these waves that are coming in, kind of kicking up that surf and moving that food around. And there is undoubtedly fish here. That's the thing. There's no way that there's not. And the problem is, of course, it's just trying to get them to strike. I actually rigged this jig the other way around. So instead of tying it, by the way, with the hooks at the top like you're probably used to seeing them, I tied it a little bit, kind of like a spoon. Just I thought if I got a strike, it would be a better hookup just in this particular scenario. Just a little tidbit for you there. But you can see I had multiple layers of that surf kind of kicking back. And when I have caught fish on the spinning, it's kind of these conditions that work the best for me. And it was just, I found it so bamboozling that like I felt the heat on my back. Sure, I was getting cooled down by the wind, all right, but I felt the heat on my back and I was like, how is there nothing? Like literally nothing, no interest in anything at all, which is just like incredibly unlikely. So this brings me on probably now to my second day of the spin fishing, and that's what you'll have for you here. This is where I just did some wading. I decided maybe, you know what, I was a little bit too disconnected from the water. I didn't fish a certain area for long enough. I just covered a lot of ground. I didn't really put the work in. And I decided to return to a spot that I have caught a bass. It was actually where I caught my PB, 60 centimeter, 5.5 pound. And I was like, man, perfect. Let's give this a crack. Let's do it almost the same way. I used all the lures in my arsenal, everything else I could do, and all the lures that I tell you guys to use as well in the order. And I still, I didn't manage to to pick anything up. It was incredibly frustrating. And this eventually led me to kind of think of doing this video in the way that I'm doing it now. But just before I move on with the video, I'm just going to show you guys very quickly in what order I think you should use your lures, just to really search out that water and then kind of increase your chance of actually picking up a fish in those conditions. So I'll talk you through that very briefly before we move on. Time to cue the funky lo-fi music just to indicate a detailed teaching segment. Okay. A lure that I recommend a lot of you start off with, just to do your first couple casts when you're casting an area, a lot of the times is either a metal or a top water. Now the reason why I say metal there, those are two completely different lures. The reason why I say metal is a lot of the time I think it's actually quite useful just to cast out with a metal, and just don't let it sink. I know this is a jig and everything else, just don't let it sink too much. Fish that kind of top water column, just so you can get your casts out there and you can get your line wet. When your line is wet, by the way, after that first couple casts, you guys will pick this up fairly quickly. All your casts will be much farther, because when the line is wet, it casts much better than a dry line, which is all kind of clumped up inside the reel. The reason why I then say go with a top water after that, or after the fact, is because a top water you really can't snag, and considering the conditions allow for it, as in you have a kind of a still surface of the water, you can have very clear strike indication if anything's nearby in the area. You want to work it in a way that's like the easiest for you backwards, you know? So from the easiest lures to use and the ones that are least likely to get snagged to lures that are more likely to get snagged. That's the way I like to look at it. I think it's a very because every lure can catch a fish, okay? It's important to try use the ones for the situation and try see what you can get away with in what situation. Because if you guys had a Rapala, an X-Rap, for example, I'll put it up on the screen, and you were to just walk around all the time and constantly cast the Rapala X-Rap, the chances that you would just eventually come to a bad spot, cast wrong, and snag yourself into a rock and lose it is quite high. But if you do it kind of in the way that I'm suggesting here, then everything will kind of be procedural. It'll be more difficult to snag stuff up. And even if you cast that jig at the start and you snag that up, then still quite cheap and you can get around it. When you lose a Rapala X-Rap, you're losing 20 euros, sometimes 25, sometimes upwards of that actually, if you're paying for like a more premium model. Now, with the lovely change of music, we're going to continue on. So, after you've cast your top water, maybe you're not getting any interest in that. Maybe you've decided that the conditions are too bad for top water, which is why I recommend the jig as well at the start. Sometimes the water just isn't still on the surface. I then recommend moving on with a soft plastic and kind of just scouring that bottom a little bit, just looking for a little bit more of that structure. A lot of the times when I say soft plastics, I normally mean weedless. Nowadays, there's almost no reason not to use a weedless soft plastics. If you're one of these people that are concerned on the hookup rate on weedless soft plastics, I haven't done a video on it. I could easily do one, or how about this? Just look it up on YouTube or look it up anywhere online. The weedless soft plastics, their hookup ratio is just as good as the standard ones, the old century soft plastics, okay? We use the soft plastics just to find kind of where the structure is along the bottom. There's always going to be rocky outcrops. There's going to be, sometimes if you're fishing in freshwater, underwater trees, logs, this kind of stuff, lots of kind of snaggy structure. And if you touch off those structures with a treble hook on the back of a plug or a Rapala, like I was talking about, you're going to get snagged up for good. You can kind of glance off it with a weedless soft plastic. And in the same way, you can glance off it with a jig, but that's why we use it like this. So again, just slowly to reiterate where we're at, jig or top water, then onto the soft plastics. And you can also interchangeably use some metal jigs in there as well. I'll have diagrams of these up on the screen as I'm going along, I'm sure. When I'm in the editing phase, normally I just do these all in one take. And then finally, what I would touch on then at the end, just if you feel like the fishing is still very slow, is I would then use your plugs and your Rapalas and everything else. Now, the plugs and Rapalas can be super good, like very good. They really excite some fish, especially the predatory fish. They really want to get at them, except they're expensive, they have treble hooks, and it's kind of a little bit more difficult to control because they have a lip. and they kind of have a mind of their own in that way. They want to go in the direction that they're pointing, and that isn't always exactly where you want them to go. Meanwhile, all these little lures I've spoken beforehand, you'll have much better control of kind of working it backwards. By the way, if you're wondering if there's something else in the background, just this track seems to have people chatting in the background, but we'll stick with it. But this is what I mean. If you approach it in this way, so lures in top water, jigs, soft plastics, and then Rapalas, plugs, hard baits, everything else after that, you should have a pretty good time of doing all your lure fishing, not snagging up, covering an area effectively, and kind of pushing through that. And just knowing that when you leave that spot, you can then finally say, hey, you know, I've done my due diligence here. If there was a fish here, they would take it. The short detour hasn't really been so short. I'm very, very passionate about lure fishing in particular. Well, fishing in general, but lure fishing in particular. I find it to be kind of mystical and interesting in its own way. But anyways, enjoy the rest of the video. Back to the regular scheduled programming. I'm not going to lie, I actually kind of like this lo-fi stuff. I know it's sort of off theme to what I usually use, but I'll stick to it, at least for now. Let me know what you think of it. This brings us to the point of the video. The point of the video is you aren't catching fish, likely if you're spin fishing, just like I have been. And as you can see, I'm glad that I've actually documented it when I went and did it. I did this in the most meticulous, well thought out way I could have done. I did 2 whole days of spin fishing in 2 different places, a place that I've caught a big bass before and a place that I've never ever fished before, but basically a big stretch up and down, you know, definitely not overfished by any means. And I still didn't catch anything. And I just want to put this in your mind that when you apply the principles correctly, when you use the lures in the right place, when you understand structure and all this stuff, it's not likely you that's the issue or the problem. It's probably just the conditions. It's not like you're fishing it wrong or you need to buy new gear or any of that nonsense. It's just more than likely the conditions are just not actually there for you. In a lot of cases this time of year, it's because the water's still too cold. This is what I managed to actually prove with this part of my video now, is I fished a place that I actually haven't fished, and I didn't really expect much, except I just used bait. I used ragworm, because when the water's colder, we tend to use bait. I'll explain very, very briefly why that is in a second, but just knowing how brief I am, I'll continue on track just for a moment. I used bait, and I managed to pick up a nice bass. I was picking up good fish all through, good few dogfish, that kind of stuff. I didn't record all the dogfish, everything else. I kind of wish I should have, maybe, just to kind of show off, but the point is my luck drastically changed as soon as I just started using bait, now in that colder water, and I was having a great time. So just don't get dissuaded if you have bought all the lure fishing stuff, you want to go out and try it. I know a lot of you are very excited, but just make sure you check that water temperature, because it is critical. I'll show you guys all what the bait fishing part looks like now. I'll segue into it right nicely as the music fades. Super!
Today we're fishing with an old favourite bait of ours, ragworm. I've got 2 boxes of them, and they're from not yesterday but the day before last. So they're on the edge of basically almost going off, which is why they will all need to be used this session. I've got the big mechanics gloves always, just whenever I fish nighttime, just in case it gets particularly cold. You know, it's unlikely, but it's definitely possible. We also have a new addition to a rig that I use a lot here on this channel, the 2-hook flapper. My #1 most favorite rig ever, because it just catches fish. It really is that simple. And that is these funny little hooks I'm using. So let me show you. So the hooks I'm using are BKK glow circles. Now you might notice that they're white. That's a bit strange. They are glow in the dark, which is particularly the reason why I wanted to come out here at nighttime and do this. If you're noticing as well that little bit, oh, there's no way that's even coming through. There's a little bit of white stuff on the line, and what that is that's again super glue gel. at all the little spots that I have it. Every single knot, just reinforced with super glue gel. And yeah, time to just take these worms out here. I'm gonna rig this up here before I even put it down on the rod down there, just to make it easy for myself. Right, start off with this guy here. Perfect little rock to cut him up on. Reach for my little Opinel. I recommend keeping a little shit knife in your belt, which this is what I would describe as a #1 shit knife. Opinel Carbon #5. Not because it's necessarily totally shit, it's just, I think it cost me €7 or something like that, so very, very, very cheap. And like, I really, really don't care if I have to, you know, cut it up against a rock or something else. Like, I literally use it just to fillet fish sometimes, and a lot of the times just to kill. No, sorry, not to kill, to cut up bait so I can use it. So there we go. Because these worms, these hooks are actually quite small. They're size 6, I think, or size 8. So very small, right? I'll still be putting on the worm in the usual way by feeding it through the hook, but then I'll be kind of bounding it through the hook again and again and again, just to ensure that we're actually getting most of the bait on that hook. Now I need to see what side of him is the mouth. So that side at the back there, that's spitting stuff out. Do you have teeth? No. So, in case you guys don't know, well, of course, why would you know? Because you're watching the channel. You're basically looking for the side with the teeth, because he has some nasty pincers on him, like I've said in other videos. Let's just feed him this hook. Come on. He's got some nasty pincers on him, and if you make mistakes, he will capitalize. Like, he will have a nibble, and they've had a nibble on me before. And it's not so much that it hurts in the sense that it's actual pain being caused, like, it's not that it actually hurts that bad. It's just the fact that, at least for me, I find it particularly creepy and off-putting that I'm being bitten by a worm, and I really, really don't like that. So there you go. There's the rig. I've also super glued in position the lines kind of coming out at a jut, kind of so not parallel to the main line. So this white line I'm holding in my fingers here, this is what I'm playing with. This is, I think, 50-pound fluorocarbon, actually, because it's the line that I had lying around. And then the main line with the hooks on it is 15-pound Daiwa monofilament, Daiwa sensor, which is another combination of words that you're probably sick of hearing if you watch this channel. If you watch this channel somewhat regularly. But yeah, these hooks, I've tested it myself, do sincerely, properly glow in the dark. As soon as I got them, I waited till it was night time, and I took it into the bedroom and I snuck it under the pillows, under the covers, the whole box of them. I just looked at them all. Great. Right. In case you're wondering again, the weight at the bottom is an 8-ounce weight, and as per usual, the first cast, I really don't send it into heaven, because your line is dry. Your line is dry, and I just have a little bit of a thing with when my line is dry and when I'm tossing my first ever cast, I really don't like to hoof it out. Here's my little sand spike. Stuff that in there. And I'll tighten this up nice. Does that play the violin yet? Right, that'll do. For a first cast, that'll be fine. Actually feels great not having a lot of shit everywhere. I've got to the point where I'm pretty good at all my fishing and all my packing stuff, that I literally just have my bare essentials. Now I know you could say the belt is not so much a bare essential, because in fairness I do have lures and everything else in there, and obviously I'm not using any lures today, but just that, and I have everything I need, and I don't have a whole lot of stuff I'm lugging about. It really is a little bit demoralizing when you're about to go fishing and you realize you have to grab 10-20 different things. Oh, where's my chair, where's my beach buddy, this tarp, firewood, water, food. Nowadays I actually just forget about the water. I find that a lot of the times, unless I'm like walking like I did the that last video, I find that I can just kind of chill out here just for a number of hours, and really I won't die of dehydration. Like, I'll be fine. In fact, I'll be needing to piss all the fucking time anyway, so it makes no difference. You're sitting here, the sea is rolling in at you, and you just get the need to pee all the time. So normal. Something I feel like I've mentioned to you guys before has been, you know, things to look out for when you're fishing and conditions to fish, okay? And something to really keep an eye on is just think about what you're seeing in front of you here. You're seeing a light level decrease, and quite shortly, let's just see when twilight is. So 8:46. So in about 24 minutes exactly, it'll be much darker than it is now, and you're going to have a very sudden change. Normally then, when the light level drops, all the predatory fish species kind of come out to play, because obviously the bait fish can't see them quite as easily. On the other hand as well, a lot of bait fish then also become a little bit more active, because they're like, oh, it's going to be harder for the predatory fish to see me. So at nighttime, a lot of the time, is when everything kind of lifts up, and you kind of get something similar as well on the sunrise, but in a bit of a different way. But just to keep it in scope, we're here because it's sunrise, and we're going to have a pretty sharp change in the light level, and we're also here as the tide is dropping, which is something I told you guys to keep an eye at. An hour or 2 hours on the each end of high tide is a really good time to fish. If you show up 2 hours before, fish it till high tide, and then fish the 2 hours after, you're in a very good position there. That's a very good slot to fish. Here we're just watching that tide drop. We have 2 hours left until it's totally dropped off. We get a little bit of a slack tide, and it'll pick up again, except I don't know if I'll be staying until I think it's 11:30 until that tide actually starts to come back in again.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
As you can all see, the sun is slowly starting to set. Brilliant. So as you can see, a little fire construction, as basic as it is, all cleaned up there with the knife there. Just now that it's getting dark, I'll grab as much firewood as I can from all over the beach, and then try just haul it back to where I am. Brought my knife, but probably shouldn't have. Probably need both hands. It'd be more useful. Because yeah, I just know once it gets dark, like dark, I'm not really going to feel that motivated for going back out and just pulling it all down towards me. So I'll just grab what I can now from this pile here that I'm approaching and pull it back with me. Just so you can see, I've got a fair bit actually. A lot of it's all kind of like tied together to itself, so it's actually not too bad. Hauling a good bit of that wood with me now, and we'll be starting that fire very soon. So I'll just try to get you a bit of lighting. There we go, a little bit of lighting. I probably look ridiculous, but I'm sitting up against this little stony outcrop here, and I've got my fire that I'm going to light now in front of me. I have to also put the light on my rod, to put the rod light on top of it, and then hopefully we'll have a nice calm relaxing, fantastic evening of fishing. Now, I do have a prediction that this is going to go straight up. Let me see where the other one is. Right down there. Right, let's see how this goes. Right, time to shove a bit of this dry grass towards the center here. It's just a bit of kindling. It's like a lot of it is attached to this vine thing here. Right, there we go. Now you will surely go. There we go. That's picking up a decent amount. Lovely. Hello everyone. It's currently 9:04 as you can see, and it's pitch black. The moon is actually doing us a great service shining down. Now I know my GoPro is really not good in low light, so I can't really illustrate to you what I'm seeing in front of me, but I can effectively see without my head torch for miles, almost like it's the daytime. There are certain bits that I can't see that well, but apart from that, it really is very bright. My fire, if I turn this off, also probably won't be able to be picked up. It's kind of reduced itself kind of to something a little bit more smouldering, a little bit sad. I don't think that's probably even going to come up on the camera, but we'll see. I will just, to be honest, that's just a bit of laziness on my part. I kind of lumped everything together and I was like, ah, yeah, that'll go. And obviously it went for a bit and then it didn't. So that's what happens. A fire is a very active task. Wait, I don't know even why I'm wagging my hands and moving my hands. Anyways, time to go check the bait. Not getting much weight on this. Really, I'd be very surprised if it was a fish. But you never know, stranger things have happened. I think it's... yeah, it's there. No. All the worms are gone and weight's there. Okay. Time to ring up some more. Because the worms are actually kind of old in as far as how old they get, they're actually slowly starting to die and fall apart. So I'll do something I did the other day. I'll chuck a little bit of bait tie on. I have said before in the Angler's Compendium, which is my little monthly magazine, that I think bait tie is one of the most important things to carry with you when you are bait fishing. It is the most revolutionary fishing invention ever. See, now these two fellas, they're okay. They're a little bit slow, but this guy, I'm not sure if you can tell on the camera, but he's rotting. The back of him is essentially rotting away. Not a very nice existence, but then these guys, much like bobbit worms, don't live a very peaceful or nice existence themselves. They just constantly try bite. Like right now, if I didn't have my gloves on, that would hurt. He's nibbling, I can feel it. It's a particularly kind of off-putting feeling, because they just like clamp you like pincers. They're horrible little creatures. Right. So to put him on this little rock here. There you go. There's your stop. Well, as you can see, the hooks have been picked totally clean. So these guys are very popular down there, which is great news for us. So how I'm going to bait wrap this is actually, now that I've got his mouth through my hook, and you can see my hook point exposed there, I'm actually going to show you how I'm going to do it. Got the sharp pointy part out of the way. I'm going to double him back over himself like such, kind of re-impale the back of him on this like that, and then I'm just going to bait wrap this bit on. So just basically ensuring that his head and his arse kind of stay clamped to this hook. Now some of you might be looking at this and going, very strange. How come you're bait wrapping kind of around the barb and you're covering up the exposed hook? When it comes to this, this is a very, very, very soft bait. This guy will literally melt in the fish's mouth. I mean, it's rare a few times, unless when they're very fresh and you get a fish that just, you know, you get a perfect hookup, that you actually get a piece of your worm back when you reel the fish in. These guys tend to basically get hooked and then just disintegrate because they're very, very, very soft. So you don't have to worry too much about hook point exposure or any of that. Now I rigged it like this there the other day, and it was in the middle of the day with my girlfriend, and I managed to catch a dogfish. So, I mean, we're kind of hoping that we don't get dogfish tonight, because they're not terribly exciting, but again, it is a little bit, I will say it is a little bit exciting when they do bite, and they start running that line, because they really do scream that line big time. Now this other guy, he's kind of falling apart in a different way, so I can't really hook him up as nicely, but I'm sure you guys get the picture. Right, time to cast him out. Before I forget as well, I'm going to put this rod light on after I cast, only because I don't have particularly great luck with these actually staying on the end of my rod when I cast it. I think I've lost 3 or 4 this way, but right. The worms have their seatbelts on. I'm going to put on my conical flashlight so I can see a little bit further. There we go. That's a good one. That went very far. Especially considering the tide is out, it's actually probably a little bit further than usual. And I'm just gonna, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, but I think I'll clip that part out and just include this bit. The reason why after I've cast now I'm reeling it, some of you have expressed that I probably should explain stuff as I'm going through it, because stuff that I think is very, very obvious to me really isn't obvious to people who don't fish. And the reason is, I'm basically getting rid of kind of wasted line. So in between the weight and the bait and everything else that I cast and all that line that went behind it, as I've kind of closed the reel on this and kind of stopped any more line from coming out, there is more than likely kind of a bend in the line. So if you imagine, this is my position, this is the position of my bait, the line is probably never going to be straight like that unless it's under tension. So unless I'm actively reeling it in like a spinner or something else. But just to keep things simple, this is me, this is the bait, okay? The line, more than likely, is like this, or like this, or basically in any other variation other than exactly straight, because the wind and the waves will kind of drift it in the direction that it wants to drift. And what I'm doing when I'm reeling in very carefully like this is I'm essentially trying to, without losing the distance that I've reeled, manage to get some tension on my line, because a line without tension really isn't that great. Now you can fish a line that's not taut, it's definitely not impossible, done it many times, but essentially you want your line to kind of look like that. You want it to be pretty straight. Now, it doesn't have to be totally straight, because a lot of the times if your line is too tight like that, sometimes then you're snagged up on something, and that's not a great outcome for you either. So right, I'm gonna just get this fire back going. As you can see, it looks a bit sad now, and as you can see, it was the laziest little chuck to go. Like I chucked it all up a little bit at the bottom, and it went up for a second, and now it's sad again. So let's get that going. Right, let's do a reel in. Okay, it feels a good bit heavier than usual. I did see a few nibbles on the rod, but I didn't really think it was anything. Now I am kind of convinced. Is that really just my weight? Or is that something really small in front of it? What the hell? Feels really hefty in my fucking arse. I'm talking shit as per usual. What are you, fella? Nice little whiting. It's good. Good sign. Another reason I've gone back to using circle hooks is quite simply how they hook into the fish. Jesus, these are hooking into me like no one's business. But they always just seem to perfectly just catch the lip. Unlike kind of those straight shanked, kind of barbed, like the worm hooks that I've been using before. Like, look at that. Like, literally couldn't get a more perfect. You couldn't get a more perfect hookup than that, really. Let's just get this out. Right. Let's leave him go back into the sea for another day. See ya. Just because it's getting later and later, I've now just grabbed 3 worms, 2 small ones and 1 very big one. Fuck me, he's big enough I can feel him through the glove. But I'm going to rig these fellas on in the usual way and send them out. Hopefully we get something a little bit bigger. That's what I hope anyway. This time around, I haven't done the top hook yet, but just for the bottom one so far, I've impaled them both through the head and kind of wrapped it around, if you could imagine, where their neck would be, and pointed the hook out that way. And I'm actually just going to bait tie it like this and leave this dangling. I feel like this could actually have a pretty good effect. Now for the big fella. Now my next little Josef Mengele experiment will be this guy. I've again put the hook out through his neck and actually put it through his midsection. And I'm going to kind of attach him head to midsection, kind of straight through the middle of the body, because the rest of him is kind of rotting. And I really don't want him to fall off, like, because he's a nice big bait. So I'd like to get some use out of him. Just going to wrap him with the bit on him that's very clearly live and isn't going anywhere. Lash that to my hook and clip that off. Look at that. And these 2 little fellas here are going to get their own special treatment. Oh, he's dripping a little bit of that shit on me. It's good. It's the only thing I prefer about lure fishing to bait fishing. You don't have to come out and beat Josef Mengele. That's the only thing, because it's a little bit annoying having to clean your hands off every single time, and then you come home, you smell as shit. Especially I don't do it anymore, but if you fish with mackerel, then like that smell of like rotting mackerel and squid, like, it just does not get away from you. And you guys are like, what do you mean rotting? Surely you aren't using rotting fish or rotting bait. No, but a lot of the times, like, you'll take it out, you'll bring it out to you, it'll be hot, or you leave it throughout the day and it'll start rotting, or you'll get a little bit of it on your clothes, and then by the time you're home, you forget that there's a tiny little bit on there, and then that's how they get you. Just make sure my little pre-flight, just tug it a little bit, see if that's coming freely. It is. I don't have my right glove with me down here, but won't make too much of a difference, surely. Rocket. Now again, as some of you may have noticed, I really am snapping off at all, really, when I'm bait fishing anymore. And I actually credit that almost entirely just down to my use of weight. I've completely left the grip weights alone. As I mentioned in my last little catch and cook little video, but I've completely left the grip weights alone. They are, I was addicted to them for 2 years. For 2 years, I would literally not fish with anything else other than grip weights, and anybody who fished with just a basic weight I'd actually look down on. And I'm serious now, I shouldn't be admitting this, but I'd look down on them because I'd go, you're an idiot. Grip weight's so much better in heavy tide. Like, you can use a little regular weight, like, oh yeah, that'll do the job, I guess. But I always thought grip weights were the way to go. Like, if you're a serious fisherman, you'd be carrying them with you all the time. But to be honest, ever since I swapped away from them, I love it. I don't snap off once, and I like rarely ever get a snag ever. Really, really nice. And I can't tangle my rig in my own weight as well, which is another big, huge bonus.
20 minutes later.
The rod has been a bit... It's been doing a little bit of talking. Oh, there we go. Yeah, nice. That's YouTube classic. All right. Let's reel you in. Yeah. Something small though, I think. Something really small. I know that looked like a big pull, but I'll be gutted if I have nothing on. But I've got a feeling like it's just something very small. I believe I just seen it there for a second. No! I see nothing. I'm telling a complete lie, viewers. So, yeah, my bottom worms are all picked clean. My top worm is still there. Big fella. I almost wish I didn't reel in, because now I need to rebait. But it's alright. That's okay. We won't be here for too much longer. It's kind of morbid, but because these guys are all kind of rotting, I have to bait tie them all up just to keep them probably from falling off when I cast it. Right, time to give this a wallop. This will be the last cast that I record. If I catch anything, you'll see it. This GoPro's on 15%, and normally when it gets to about this percent, it just starts automatically turning off. It's like an old iPhone, and I know that because I have one. Right, see you in a bit. If I don't catch anything, you'll see me back in the $10 million studio. Right, nice fish. That's a nice fish. There's a big old strike on it. Now, watch this be a doggy now. But the strike on it was very severe, and it was very energetic. By the fact that it loosened up a little bit, I'm almost thinking this could be a bass. Oh, the way it's pulsing. Is that a very small bass? Yes, you are! Ah, beautiful! Hello, gorgeous! I knew you'd be there! Oh my god. Hello, gorgeous! Hello, beautiful! Let me just change my light on my camera so you can see him a little better. Hello! Oh my gosh! Well, folks, that'll tell you something anyway.
And if you could believe it, it's at this exact moment that my GoPro died. And I'm delighted that I even managed to get this much, because genuinely, when it died at that moment, I said, that's it. Everything's finished. I've caught a little whiting, and I'm going to look like a shithouse for YouTube. So I thank the good Lord for letting me capture what is in total about 4 to 5 seconds of a nice little bass. I put my little Leatherman against him, and I put 2 Leathermans up by him, and I reckon he's about 25 centimeters total. I don't think he's much bigger than that. But anyways, he's a very, very welcome little fish. I took some more pictures with my phone there, obviously, just in case. So, with no iPhone footage, I hope you have to bear with that. I didn't know there was singing in this song. Hold on, I have to change the track. 1 second. So, there we are, just changing gear a little bit. I hope that this has been able to illustrate to you that the bass are there and the fish are there. They just don't want your lures because the water's a little bit too cold. A little bit like us, they're lazy, okay? And when it's cold outside, we don't really want to go out. And especially we don't want to go out doing active stuff. I used this analogy the other day when I was explaining it. If there was a water park outside and it was the middle of winter and I asked you, did you want to go? You would say, no, probably not. It'd be cold. It wouldn't really be fun. You know, even when if you have an ice cream in winter as well, it's cold. It's not very nice. It's sort of that same way in a very, very simplified manner. It's another reason why bass don't want to kind of go out and do all that. It's not very comfortable for them. But also there is a practical reason. And that is because they need to burn calories to stay warm, just like us. And when it's winter, and when that water is colder, they are basically more selective over what they actually attack and what they try to go to eat. So they'll scavenge much more than they'll actually actively hunt, which is why a lot of the times when the weather starts to get much warmer, you'll see fish being more active. And in places that are tropical, like Australia and all the rest, and Florida, which I mention on this channel sometimes, which there are very, very active all the time because the water is very warm. They don't necessarily have to conserve energy. They can fly and dart all around the place. And it's a very energetic, exciting place to go fishing. It's why a lot of the times people don't go to super cold places to fish. It's just exactly why. But I hope I've been able to show you that the bass are there and they're within casting range. I definitely could have cast out to him with my lure fishing setup, but just happened to use the bait. But they're there, except it's just a little bit too cold. And just make sure you keep an eye on those conditions. And you use bait when the water is cold. You can go ahead and try your arm at using some lures and try to be a little bit crazy in that sense and kind of, you know, try think you're starting a whole new school of thought. I did this for a year, for a full year, by the way, on basically all the days off that I had from my old job, and then when I quit it, almost for a total year I fished it when it was cold, and I never had much success, especially on cold days. I never had any success, I should say, sorry. Especially on cold days, it's just nothing. As soon as I started fishing with the bait, everything changed. So just understand, you are not going to be jobless enough to be able to force it to happen, and it quite simply will not happen. They will not strike when it's too cold. I hope I've made this abundantly clear. I know this is kind of stretched on a little bit, but this was the explanation I wanted to get to when I said I'll explain it later on, and the fact that I'm not very brief is emphasized here. God bless you all. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope you've learned something. I hope the lo-fi music changing up hasn't been too weird. Well, hey, listen. Experimentation, a little bit of fun, a little bit of something. God bless you all, and I'll see you all in the next one, alright? Be good.